This is Damian McCarthy, and much like many of you, he once had dreams of making movies, to go beyond his short films to full-on features. Unfortunately though, he ran into the same problem that everyone does when they want to do anything more interesting than staring at a wall. Money. Financing his first feature proved to be so difficult that in 2016, McCarthy actually just gave up on making his film, going back to work at his regular job. But when all hope seemed to be lost, his producer secured just enough money to start the project, even if much less than they had hoped for. Now afraid of losing the little money he finally achieved, he quickly reworked and simplified the script he had already written and got started on making the movie, taking any chance he could to save money, begging, borrowing, building, or stealing from people. But even with all these cost-cutting maneuvers, he still had to do much of the work himself, so much so that even after they finished filming, working from 8 AM to 7 PM, he had to edit the film on his own, going piece by piece, a mind-numbing process that took so long it allowed his self-doubt to seep in. Because after editing a horror movie for a year and a half, everything starts to blend together, and it's hard to find the film scary anymore. But Damian McCarthy was wrong. Caveat is scary, and here's why. You've probably heard of Chekhov's gun, setup and payoff, the idea that if we see a loaded rifle early in the story, it should fire at some point later on. But it's more than just seeing the gun or it appearing on screen. It's recognizing that the film is emphasizing it, making sure that you notice it. That's what creates this anticipation, some expected purpose for the weapon. Like, if they want us to acknowledge it, there must be a reason. But what happens when these elements become entangled, when the setup is the payoff? Well, that's when the shock happens. You see, among other things, Caveat creates horror by subverting your expectations, lulling you into a false sense of security only to break that illusion soon after. But it does so efficiently, both building and breaking these feelings with moments of horror, not simply delivering information, but flooding the film with as much dread as possible. Caveat follows this man, Isaac, who's been tasked to stay at a creepy old house in the middle of nowhere. Before going though, he learns an important detail, that the woman of the house has been missing for 8 months. Understanding that films don't usually include unnecessary information, a question lingers in our mind. Where is this woman? That's the setup. But when Isaac discovers a hole in the wall, we get the payoff, as Isaac stumbles across her corpse, apparently fulfilling both her narrative and emotional purposes. That is, answering the question about the woman and frightening the audience. But this belief that the film has fully utilized the goals of the corpse, that its payoff is complete, drops your guard, opening the audience for an even deeper scare. As time passes, the corpse's screen time wanes, the film focusing on other plot points, which seems to reinforce the idea that the corpse's purpose has been fulfilled. Eventually though, Isaac finds it necessary to go back to the corpse, not to simply see it this time, but to now approach it, to take something it has. So, yet again, the film provides the corpse with a simple task that, once completed, leaves the corpse's purpose also feeling fulfilled, that the corpse itself has nothing left to offer. The corpse's mere presence doesn't create anticipation because the film doesn't indicate a purpose for the corpse beyond the one it's already shown and fulfilled. We don't expect the gun to fire because it seems like it already has. So, later on, when Isaac finds himself inching through the house's decrepit walls, we don't expect to see the corpse. Even with the dim lighting and the claustrophobic spacing, we don't expect to see the corpse. Even as the film adds suspense, hiding and showing the area forward to make us believe something will be there, we don't expect to see the corpse. We assume it's already fulfilled its purpose in the story, and we have no reason to believe it has more. But when Isaac lights the path forward one more time, that anticipation, that tension the scene has been building, pays off. And we finally realize the underlying secondary purpose of the corpse, reframing everything we thought we knew, showing that not only are we no longer safe, but that we never were. All the unexplained events suddenly having an answer, one so terrifying that all you can do is stare. Unlike many other horror movies, this scene doesn't release the tension it builds with darkness and eerie music by pairing the corpse with a loud sound. Instead, it just quickly flashes, allowing you to recognize the corpse and to sit with that disturbing realization, to question what it means and what to do next. If you show a loaded gun, the audience expects it to fire because we believe that everything has some intention, some reason for its inclusion in the film, and if the film doesn't initially give it one, we'll make one up. But with more information, that assumed purpose can change or expand into something deeper. This film takes advantage of your preconceptions, using them against you to hide its setups and payoffs to make room for a shock, but one that, upon looking back, was well established. The most terrifying moment in Caveat doesn't feel like a cheap scare because of its setup. The corpse didn't first appear in the crawl space, it was there throughout the film. We just didn't believe it had any purpose deeper than the surface level, the moments where the film directly addressed it, so when the payoff happened, we dropped our guard. But a moment can act as both a setup and a payoff. You see, the knowledge of the missing woman is setup that is paid off by the discovery of the corpse, which seems to be nothing more than payoff, but is actually also setup that is paid off by the corpse's appearance in the crawl space. Put simply, the film hides the setup for the corpse's later reveal as nothing more than the payoff for the earlier question. And this tactic simultaneously gives the audience information while also making us easier to fool, because sometimes receiving information makes us stop looking for more. And the best part of all this is that Isaac's discovery in the crawl space only makes the moments afterwards even more terrifying. With the knowledge of this deeper purpose, this constant switch between setup and payoff, everything about the corpse becomes unclear. Its intentions, its abilities, its history, and we can only wait, sitting right next to it, for what happens next. The gun may have already fired, but it can always have another bullet.